And also later on, we're going to meet this chap here, whose name is Robert Long. They call him Beansprout or something.
Speaking about the Chatham Islands being isolated, this they ain't got nothing on this.
No. This guy, so anyway, Robert, 30 years ago, decides that, and we'll find out later exactly why, but he decides he wants to live an isolated life, and so lives in a cabin in Gorge, on Gorge River in the South Island, which is probably the most isolated place to live you can live in New Zealand. It's probably the most isolated family. Miraculously, and we'll find out how he did it, he found a wife.
And they
I don't
had
know
children.
if she fell out of a plane or something, but he found a wife, and then they had 2 children. So he's lived
being
there.
raised by wolves in the bush, maybe.
Yes, probably. The wolves chucked her out. He found her. She's lived there for 20 years. He's lived there for 30 years. The really interesting thing is that he has 2 children, a 17-year-old boy, 14-year-old girl, and they have known nothing else. So there's an upside to that, isn't there? Partly that is a gift. It's a gift of his passion and everything. They've had an experience that other children just couldn't have. But it's also a penance, in a way, isn't it? Like they're robbed of all the things that...
I suppose it depends on how you look at it.
You're 17 years old and you've just been there with your mum, your sister and your dad.
They might be lacking a few pals.
Yeah. And you would get stir crazy.
Their way of life.
It'd be interesting anyway. So he's coming in. He's not coming to Auckland, of course, because that would be... It would just...
it might kill
he'd just
him.
go like... He'd be like this all through the interview. He's in the Queenstown studio, which quite frankly is... like a camp in the middle of the gorge.
Enough for somebody from Gorge River.
We'll talk to him a bit later, but how interesting is that? So that's later on the programme this morning. And then we will check out what it is like to live 2 days away from the nearest road, raising 2 children. We meet a man from one of New Zealand's most isolated places. 8:15 breakfast on a Thursday morning. Well, it's called Gorge River. It runs between Milford Sound and Jackson Bay along the South Island's west coast. But for Robert Long, it's called home. His home is 2 days' walk from the nearest road and right in the centre of a national park. The wilderness man joins me now from Queenstown. Robert, good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. Good to see you.
Good, and very good to see you as well. The reason we're talking to you, of course, is that you've just brought this book out, A Life on Gorge River, which is your life and the life of your family. As you stand in Queenstown and look around, what are the things that, if you could, you would like to take back to Gorge River with you?
You mean from Queenstown? Oh, I don't need to take that much back from Queenstown. Except for a bit of shopping, maybe, from the supermarket.
You get a helicopter comes in about once a month, yes?
We get an aeroplane in about once a month or every 6 weeks with supplies, that's right.
Are you living your dream?
Pretty close to it, yeah. I love being out there in the wilderness and feeling the energy and the vibe that's coming off it. And that sustains me and helps our family to survive as well. And we live as close to the land as we can because we love it.
You've walked outside of your front door. Describe it for me, if you will, because you've lived there for 30 years. You must know exactly what it looks like. You walk outside the front door. What do you see?
I see the ocean, I see a river mouth, and I see Cascade Point about 30 k's in the distance. I see seagulls and an island out there at sea, and I see massive waves coming in day after day after day. Also, you're in a unique position, I suppose, to experience all the elements, all the seasons. You've got the ocean coming right at you, the wind, the weather. That's right, yeah. I love the energy that's coming off it. Instead of watching a video and watching TV, I'd rather look out my front window and watch the waves rolling in. How many modern comforts do you have when you talk TV, video, things like that? Well, we don't have videos or TV. We have the internet now. Since my son went away to school, we ended up getting the internet so we could keep in touch with him. We have solar electricity and we have a wind generator to get our own electricity to carve greenstone and run a few lights. But apart from that, we have hot water coming off burning firewood off our stove so we can have shower every day. So it's reasonably comfortable. To what extent have you run away from mainstream life? Well, I suppose I've run away a wee bit, but it's still, to me, a bit like suburbia, but it's just really a bit more of a gap between the houses, you know. How did you even meet your wife? You'd been living this life for, what, about a decade before you met your wife? That's correct. I actually met my wife here in Queenstown. She wanted to go for a tramp with another girlfriend of hers, and they wanted to go a difficult track, and they asked me to come along so that they wouldn't get lost. So I agreed to come with them because I thought that'd probably be a good idea.
And turns out it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of people go tramping and a lot of people understand the absolute unspoilt beauty of that part of paradise that you call home, but no one else has chosen to live there. How did you convince your wife to stay with you?
Well, I didn't convince my wife to stay there. She felt the same passion for the landscape, and she wanted to bring up a family in the same sort of environment. She wanted to have her kids away from televisions and all the little doodads that distract the family from actually concentrating on communicating with each other.
You mentioned that Christian, your 17-year-old son, he has travelled away to school now. How old was he before he went to school?
Well, he's 18 now. He actually decided to go out to school in his last year. He went to Mount Aspiring College in Wanaka, and now he's at Otago Polytech.
Because I suppose if people were going to be critical of you, they would say, well, you're living your dream. Your wife has bought into your dream. She is of free will. Your two children, for more than a decade, knew nothing but that life. And while there must be huge benefits in that, are there not some considerable negatives as well?
Well, they might not have had as many playmates as other kids might have had, but they've still got really good friends. Some people used to bring their families in to stay with us, along with their cousins. And to me, I thought that would be an asset to the world. Instead of having all kids brought up out here, it's good to have a change of culture, people who can adapt to the environment and survive and that sort of thing, and I think that's a good thing for the world. And they've done well. They've topped their science courses at Correspondence, and they've won scholarships and gone away to science weeks and that sort of thing.
Even although undoubtedly they've missed out on things, it's an amazing gift you've given them, which isn't an option for almost everybody else. Just very quickly, do you ever get stir crazy? Do you ever think of something and think, oh, if only there was someone here I could talk to about this?
Yeah, I definitely miss people. That's probably the hardest part of living in a remote area, is the isolation from other people. Even though I love being out there, you do miss people. But luckily we have quite a few friends call in and see us from time to time, so we've actually made some really good friends over the years.
Brilliant. Robert, thank you very much for joining us. Robert Long, and the book is A Life on Gorge River. It is just out in all bookstores. I usually say in all good bookstores, but I think all the bookstores have got them, the bad ones as well. How interesting is that? I mean, to read exactly the subtle nuances of living a life like that, of living a dream. I don't think I could do it. Well, obviously most people couldn't.
Not me.
Right, what else have we got? Living on Gorge River, just like suburbia with a bit more space between the houses. Murray says that is a great line. And actually, when he said it, we both sort of smiled. That was definitely a great line. I flew into Gorge River to see Beansprout. That's what his nickname is. About 18 months ago, I asked if he remembered a plane that crashed there in the 70s. My father had owned it previously. He said he did and pointed to a window in his hut that he had salvaged from the wreck, or pinched, I suppose is another way you could say it. Nothing is wasted in that environment. Brian, thank you.